his attention. Christopher.
Okay, it looks like we had a bit of a glitch there. Let's see if we do this. Can you hear me now? So, Ruben and Joseph, if you can maybe just...
Yes, I can hear you when you've got your earphones in.
Okay, great stuff. So let's continue on this front. Apologies, guys, for the sound issue starting off. Today is perhaps a difficult day in many ways, including that at our office in town, we couldn't get access to the office because of the protests, and we had to make a plan to shift in Pretoria, we had to shift our venue. So that is why we also don't have Charlton Thangalan, who is the guest from APSA, on the call yet, because he is now in fact at the place where we want to broadcast from. But don't despair if that turns out not to work, then we will go to the telephone route to try to get him into the call. Welcome everyone. It looks like we started off fairly badly today, so apologies for that in terms of not having sound, but we have it now. So Rick, thank you for confirming that you can hear me. Welcome everyone that's been on the call now for a few minutes already without having sound. So we'll make up the time, and we definitely do have a few technological challenges here today, and hopefully we can get Charlton into the call too. But let's start off, Joseph. So if you can unmute yourself and we can get going there in that way. Joseph Chiwilewilo is the CEO of IBASA, for those of you that don't know him yet. And this is the platform created by the EPR and IBASA for business advisors to grow their ability in serving the needs of their small business customers. So Joseph, if I can ask you just to come into the call. You can unmute yourself. You're also having difficulties on that side. So some of you may have noticed CCOM, our connection with Europe, is down. The whole chunk, the big pipe of internet connectivity is down at the moment, and the internet bodies are making plans to keep us connected in different ways. So it may also be part of the problem that we're experiencing here, because the service that our webinar is delivered to you through is in fact linked to YouTube. YouTube Live is the delivery platform. So it may all be connected to that too. But Joseph, can we see if we can get you into the webinar? Can you try to talk? Doesn't look like the internet gods are on our side here today. So that being the case, we do have two other people in the room that can speak. Robin Owen and Karen van Vreden, they're both from FinFind. And FinFind, in fact, is a key player nowadays in making it possible for us as practitioners serving the needs of our clients in terms of financing and preparing them to be ready for financing. So I'm really looking forward to covering quite a bit of insight there. I've seen the presentation that was prepared in that regard. So also looking forward to us being able to cover that in detail. And perhaps if you don't mind, Robin, if we kind of jump into the topic quite soon. But before we do that, I would like to ask that you look to the right of your screen, and you'll see there's an area called to the right of the room where our faces are appearing, where you've been some of you have been chatting away. I'm going to quickly put up a poll there in terms of the biggest challenges that you are finding in meeting the needs of the clients that you're serving. So just look to the right of the screen there where we've been chatting away. You'll be seeing an area for polls there. If you click on the polls tab, this is Lesego trying to call me too, so I think they're sitting up there on that side. But if you can look to the right of the screen there and participate in the poll, what is the biggest problem that your clients are having, or that you are having, in terms of getting your small business client finance? Resistance from the financial institutions, developing a bankable business plan, lack of client collaboration, collateral, or own contribution, the applicant's personal credit bureau listing if they're blacklisted, lack of finance or the acumen or track record of the entrepreneur, not growing or not knowing where to go for finance, or unrealistic expectations of your clients. Which would you say is the biggest problem that you are seeing in terms of serving the needs of your clients? And it's kind of interesting to see that it looks like resistance of financial institutions is kind of scoring quite high. But let's see, we'll keep the poll open for a moment. So Robin Owen from FinFind, if I can introduce you. Hello, Robin.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Hello, Krista.
So it's nice to see your face and being able to talk to someone today. Looks like the internet is a bit difficult, and you guys are in fact running an internet platform, so I'm sure you're also experiencing some challenges now with the internet in the last few days.
We are, and we've recently moved to an area they've still got to lay the fiber optic cable, so we're working on 3G at the moment, which is daunting.
Okay, so Robin, before, I know you've given us slides and so on. In fact, I'll put them up for us now. But if you can jump into what FinFind is, sort of some of us as IBASA members may have encountered this name before. In fact, FinFind and IBASA are strategic partners, and I'll share the screen with you just now. But if you can introduce FinFind to us and what you
Yes, perfect. FinFind is an access to finance
meantime, I'll
portal,
see if I
and
can
it's
get,
unique.
I can get
in sorry.
Yes, no. In the meantime, I'll see if I can get Charlton onto the phone line too, so that he can participate from ABSA side. So Charlton Tangalan, by the way, is a representative from ABSA, and we hope to have him on the call too. So can I hand over to you, Robin? If you can introduce FinFind, and you've got some interesting things to show us today in terms of making it easier for us to work with our clients, the small businesses that we serve, in meeting their finance needs.
Okay, so FinFind is a platform that actually assists small businesses to be matched to appropriate lenders. Just to give you an indication of how it actually came about, many of the problems that you have raised here are problems we're well aware of. USA did a lot of research, the national government's done research, and they've all come to the same conclusion. So the solution is actually FinFind. So what FinFind actually does, it enables small businesses to answer questions, and the answers to those questions are then used to map them to our database of lenders. So we have collected a database of, gosh, it's about 390 odd different products. And each of those products is mapped to the criteria they use to actually approve funding. So in that sense alone, it's giving small businesses access to a wealth of information that they normally wouldn't get. Now, over and above that, it also provides them with the opportunity to read about finance, business finance, because there is absolutely no reason why anybody should understand these quite complex products and it's specifically the terms that are used. So what I'd like to take you through now is onto the second slide. Christoph, I'm not quite sure how I moved to that. Oh, there we go. Thank you. One of the things that you will find, I mean, I see here that resistance to financial institutions to fund small businesses is rating the highest. If you have a look at the chart that we've put up here, most people assume that banks are the only option available to them. And yet the banks are the most conservative. And you can actually see all the blue areas, the level of criteria that the bank requires. So, for example, you have to be profitable, have to have been in business more than a year,
Robin, can you hear me? I think we've lost Robin there. Robin? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, were you able to hear Karen?
No, I couldn't, but it looks like the internet is really playing parts with us today. So let's give it a go again. I'm going to put back the slide. I've stopped the slide now. I'll put back the slide, and then we can take it from there.
Right, I'm not quite sure where it fell off.
If you can, you were talking about that we assume that banks are the places to go for and their requirements.
And that they are they're the most conservative and they take the least risk. So what you will find is that if you understand that there are lots of different types of financial products, it can be worth applying for other types of finance. For example, if you've been awarded a large contract from a reputable company or a tender, you can apply for contract finance. very little is required other than proof of a signed contract and experience.
Yes, we're listening. Robin, are you still there? I hear someone in the background, though. So maybe it's Karen's microphone that we're hearing. Hello, Robin?
Hello? Are you muted?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Apologies. As you're aware, Robin had bronchitis last week. And so I think it's a bit of affecting her voice, and she's going into a little bit of a coughing fit. So I'm just going to step in here and give her voice a bit of a rest. Okay, so just to recap, the contract finance is a little bit easier to gain, in that you've got to be profitable for the work that you are undertaking. As long as you've got a signed contract with a good customer, that is pretty much a good guarantee that you could get money a bit easier. And then obviously the staff and the expertise to undertake the job to make sure that that the contract can be fulfilled timelessly and properly. So that's pretty much a little bit easier. And then you can move on to invoice discounting. Very similar in that you've obviously delivered the goods, you've issued the invoice, the customer's a good customer, pays well, as I said, the work is completed, and you can obviously try and get a loan against that invoice while it's pending payment. Generally in those, you cede the payment to the particular lender. Equity, again, owner's contribution doesn't have to be necessarily in cash. It could be in any other form. It could be some assets, shares, and so forth. And then you need to have the ability to scale, because obviously anybody that invests in a company with equity wants to show that the company is going to grow and that they're going to benefit from that. And then your next one being asset finance. Obviously, you would have to be profitable. That is important, and be in business for a year. So as you can see, that it's pretty much varies. But Robin seems to be okay now, so I'm going to hand over to her so she can carry on.
Thank you. Sorry about that slight change. I think the real point for everybody, in particular consultants who are working with small businesses, what we are finding is that small businesses don't understand the power of equity investments. So there's a huge resistance to actually giving up shares. But what they do need to understand is that equity, people who provide equity take the highest risk. As a result, they expect a higher return. So when you are selling a part of your company, the most important thing to bear in mind is that your choice, if you need finance to grow, is to keep 100% of what you've got with very little chance of growing anymore, to actually growing it significantly, which is what scale is all about, and then owning less of a much bigger pie. So I do think that anybody who's working with small businesses, there is a need to educate small entrepreneurs on the different types of finances. And then just a word on asset finances, because collateral is very often a major issue. But in the case of asset finance, the asset itself can often be used as the collateral. So, any questions in that area?
So, Robin, I did post there. I've asked that people do post questions that they have. I've been browsing through the chat. It doesn't seem, of course, we haven't asked people to post questions yet. But while we're pausing, it is worth reflecting. And I think that was kind of part of what you were explaining to us earlier. on the poll that we ran. So people in the room that were able to vote are saying that in their understanding of the challenges that they face to get finance for the small business clients, is that institutions like the banks, which is in your first column there on the screen now, is not seen as being open to. They're resisting the allocation of funds to the submarket segment, followed by the lack of our clients to actually provide collateral, meet the requirements of the financial institutions, provide own contributions. So those seem to be the two big scorers in terms of the problems that we are experiencing. So maybe the question would be, what ways are there for us then to work around these?
Gustav, this one. Firstly, banks are very resistant to risk, and small businesses are seen to be high risk. So unless you can prove that you are already profitable, that you've got steady, regular income, they are not really going to fund you. So then you've got to start to look for alternative means of funding. All right, and that means, can contract finance help you? Invoice discounting, equity, if you're needing to purchase equipment, can you use that means? Can you take short-term loans depending on the industry that you're in? But you have to get creative. If you don't have collateral, you've got only a couple of options available to you. So if you are wanting to go and be financed by a bank, and they are requiring collateral, then you need to understand how banks are working. CIFA, which is the one of the government funding institutions, cooperates with selected banks, in fact, most of the big ones. And what they do, they will help previously disadvantaged people gain access to business finance by standing surety for a percentage of the collateral amount. And that can be up to 90% of the collateral amount. So it is a significant. The biggest challenge you're going to find as an entrepreneur when you attempt to access this help is that a lot of the people in the banks don't know about it. So CIFA must have, for example, formed a relationship with Nedbank or ABSA or FNB, but the clerk on the ground doesn't know. So the onus is very much on you as the entrepreneur to question whether the bank is a party to the Kula Credit Indemnity Fund, and that can help them. Failing that, ABSA also have an ABSA Tembani Fund, again, specifically set up to help previously disadvantaged people progress in business. So if you don't have collateral, you can apply to that fund, but it doesn't fund large amounts of money. So it is significantly smaller.
Right. So, I mean, the main point here is that if you're not informed and know the system, you can't expect the officials at the institutions and the banks to know it. You actually have to tell them how it works so that you can get the results that you need.
100% you do. And that's one of the most important things that FinFind actually does is when you get into the site, if you scroll down, there's a Learn About Finance section. It is specifically to help small businesses.
Yeah. Right.
Sorry, yeah.
No, you are mentioning ABSA's product, and we've got Charlton. If we can get him into the call, he doesn't have sound at the moment, so that's a challenge that we're trying to overcome.
Oh, that's a pity.
But he can hear us. He can't hear us, but maybe he can speak at some point in the future. We do have 3 questions. Please, if there are more questions that you have, please mark them as questions. They will come in quickly. So how would you like to proceed, Robin? Would you like us to tackle the questions, or is there more that you would like to talk about? Shall I switch off the the display.
We could go to the next slide. In the meantime, I'm just having it. I've got. Okay, we do have. Sorry, JMT has questioned why NEF, IDC, and CIFA as funders. They're all listed as funders, but you have to understand that even those institutions are quite sticky in terms of what they will fund. So if you were referring to the slide, they weren't put in simply because each government organizational funding agent has a specific mandate, and their mandates are usually linked directly to the IDP. So they're very sector orientated. And if that helps you. But they are listed in the FinFind portal. You can read about them, and if you take the quiz, you will actually also be able to see what they fund.
Great. So we have another slide. We're going to save the other two questions, perhaps. So we've got your last slide, the slide with all the pie charts and things up.
Yes, this was really just to give you some indication. I'm not sure how clear it is to everyone, whether you can see the percentages. But remember that there are two sides to a coin. So lenders are one side, but the small business and their level of preparation is another one. In this particular case, the donut graphs at the bottom, the blue areas are actually the positive side, and the green indicates a level of not being ready. So what we are finding is a very high percentage of small businesses do not have management accounts. They don't actually have any financial statements. Fewer of them have got business plans, and in particular, budgets are also problematic. So if you think of it logically, would you lend money to a business that isn't aware of its own financial status? So small businesses need help in understanding that from a lender perspective, the fact that they haven't got their finances in order instantly makes the lender uncomfortable. So I think that there's a huge role for consultants to play in educating small businesses and helping them make sure that they are actually always on top of this. I'm just looking here.
Yes.
Sorry.
So we can come back. We can come back to questions, Robin. So okay. What would your main advice be to a business advisor in terms of working with a client that is seeking finance? What would the succinct points of advice be that you give them?
It's actually to help them be finance ready. Lenders want documentation. And secondly, they want to know that the money is going to be repaid, which makes sense. So if you can address this by providing them with the information, you are pretty likely to get it. The other advice that I would give to anybody working with small businesses is use FinFind as a tool for yourself. You can complete the quiz on behalf of your client, and remember that the answers you give are used to filter the lender database. And that lender database includes grants, it includes government funding agencies, it includes banks, it includes equity providers. It's absolutely every type of lender. So in the results, you have a full spectrum of lenders that match your funding criteria. Because this is the information that the small business invariably just doesn't have. And if you are finding that the entrepreneur himself needs to understand the different types of funds, then you can point them to FinFind and they can go and read about it and learn. But key for the
FinFind. So when you're, sorry for interrupting you, but so referring people to FinFind, what advice do you give there? What is the easiest way for business advisors to have access to the services of FinFind?
At this stage, it's really to just go and use the site www.finfindeasy.co.za. But in future, we will be building in a special platform for consultants to make it easier for you.
Okay, so we can look forward to some development from FinFind's side to actually guide business advisors through the process. But in the meantime, if I go onto the site as a business advisor, what do I find and how can I expect that to make it quick for me to help my client?
You just fill in answer the questions on behalf of your client. Because remember, each business is quite unique, and then it uses that information to filter the database.
Okay, great stuff. So if we can pause for a moment, Robin, I will see if we can get Charlton in. He had sound issues just now, but just by the way, resistance of financial institutions scored by far the highest on our question, what are the challenges that our clients are finding? 40% of the people on the call think that's the biggest challenge that we have, and 22% reckon it's the lack of client collateral and own contribution, which I find interesting because the perception has always been there that is the other way around. And then the others score kind of 10, 8, 14%, more or less equal. So let's, can we stop the sorry for that, the screen share?
Yes, sure.
Yes.
On that I think is really worth mentioning.
I must just remember that when I switch over.
For example, has a mandate to attempt to provide funding for small businesses that fail to get through traditional institutions. And I don't think many people understand that. And it really, really is worth knowing about. However, it's a little, they are in a difficult place because they also have to be sustainable. So it doesn't mean, it means that they often charge a little bit higher in terms of interest.
Okay, so I'm just seeing if we can get Charlton onto the call. In fact, I'm doing something which I've never done in a webinar, is to try to insert a telephone call, but that will take a minute or so. So, Robin, can we jump onto the questions that we have there? Crosby is asking, what if you tick all the boxes, but your annual turnover is between 250,000 and 500,000? Does that mean that you will not qualify for finance by the bank, or there are alternative ways to still get funded by the bank?
It's actually a very good question. It means you are less likely. There's always the chance. What we are starting to see now is much like ABSA have brought out the ABSA.
Would you be able to give us some guidance there, Robin, in terms of...
It means you need to go...
I can't hear you now.
Oh. Okay, can you hear me now?
No.
Hello?
No, I hear you. So
okay,
that's Crosby's question is about the 250 to 500,000 bracket of revenue. And thanks, Max and Rick. We'll come to your questions just now, and we'll see if we can get Charlton into the webinar to speak from a bank's perspective too.
All right. So, Crosby, your question is a very valid one. It's going to make it much harder for you to raise money, but not necessarily impossible. It will depend primarily why you want it, what sector you're in, as to where I would suggest you go. And some indications, and also, I mean, if you want money because you need equipment, then there's definitely assets available for somebody with a turnover such as you mentioned. But it wouldn't be through a bank, or it's unlikely to be. There are also certain funds that are designed specifically to help small businesses, providing they are maybe in a particular sector, could be owned by women, might be owned by previously disadvantaged people. There could be a whole range of different criteria, but prepared to fund businesses that have a turnover less than $1 million. So it's I can't give you guidelines, but for that's why it asks you all the questions. And then if there is a match, you will see it in the results. Okay.
Great stuff. So the questions are rolling in. Max, Daryl, Rick, Lydia, Marlon, we have your questions recorded here. So we also have Karen van Vreden from FinFind in the room. Karen, you can participate too in the chat, and if you want to speak too. In fact, we heard you speak earlier when Robin had the cough attack. So, but Robin, if you won't mind, I'm going to see if I can get Charlton into the room via the phone line. And if you can tackle those questions from Mac, Daryl, Rick, Lydia, Marlon, etc.
Do you want me to answer them now?
You can go for it, yeah. So maybe we can start with Rick's question. Several of my clients don't know about FinFind and go straight to banks, where banks turn them down. They find alternative sources on FinFind. Thanks, he says. Okay, so thank you, Rick, for that positive note. But there's also maybe some other questions, some other areas that you can cover in terms of making sure that people know about FinFind. So how does that happen, and how should we interact with FinFind in that regard?
Well, I mean, getting the message out is always the best thing. So I'm a great believer in if you find something that works for you, then tell somebody. We can all play a role in getting the information out to small businesses. I mean, it is publicized in terms of, obviously there's a lot of social media, of conferences and so on. But so yeah, please, if you find it useful, tell people. I'd like to deal with Merlin's question because I think that's quite a relevant one. How do we get finance for businesses so they're in the ideation stage? There's very little funding for it, Merlin. I'll be 100% honest. Ideas are cheap. Well, sorry, maybe one should say ideas are considered to be cheap. And unless you are operating in one of the key industry sectors, for example, you've probably seen that there's quite a lot of funding around if you are working in the green sector, or if you are tackling any of the climate change issues. So funding is very much, for ideation, is very much dependent upon the sector that you're in and the level of innovation of the idea. Very tricky, but you're 100% correct. There isn't that much on it. I'm just looking for a question.
So what about Max's question? Is this FinFind similar to the one that was launched in 2013, where many advisors were trained on?
Okay, only through CIPA, in preparation for the public launch, were some advisors trained. And I can't remember, I don't think that happened until 2015. As far as I know, there is only one FinFind. It's a registered name. Okay, there's a question raised here that's been raised by Lydia and by Rick. They're concerned about the amount of information being entered in there. It's 100%. It's using technologies where the data, it doesn't sit in one place. It splits across 4 different geographic areas, and it is all to protect data. This data isn't shared with anybody. The only thing that happens with the data is it's needed in order to match you to the appropriate lender. because these lenders vary wildly in terms of the criteria they use to allocate funds. And the only other thing that happens is that it is from an accumulative point of view, one is able to see trends in small business. That's all that happens, but your data is 100% protected.
Great. So by the way, I've been unsuccessful to get Charlton on the telephone line. I'm not sure both Sego and Charlton's phones are ringing. So I think that might perhaps still trying to get into the room. Hopefully we will still have success. Otherwise, we may organize another event when the CCOM is restored and we know the internet is stable. But so we've addressed most of the questions. There's still some here, Robin, that we can do. Daryl is saying, I have used FinFind with some success, but the biggest problem is no one knows about it at the banks. So when a business advisor or entrepreneur arrives at the bank and they don't know about FinFind, what should they be doing?
I don't think FinFind. At the end of the day, by the time you arrive at a bank, you are actually there to now submit an application. What FinFind has done is to prepare you for that by saying, this is the fund, these are the documents that you need, here's the contact. But by the time you arrive at the bank, you should be ready now to apply, because you would be aware of what they're offering and what they're requiring. So whether they know about FinFind or not is really not the issue.
Great, and I see Rick also commented there on that business owners, in fact, don't need to be very financially literate to use the FinFind service.
Yes, that has been a huge focus, is to demystify, because if you think of what happens in many situations, is that words are used to exclude people, and particularly in the financial area. So even the word for somebody who's not that conversant, they may not understand that word. And certainly when you start to talk about ROI or equity or VCs, there's absolutely no reason for anyone to understand it. So FinFind has made it its mission to say business owners understand business. So we're going to make it accessible. And everything has been written in an easy to read manner. So easy to understand, but you don't lose the complexity of what needs to be said.
So, thanks, Robin. I finally got Joseph on the call, and we'll see if we can actually get him to the phone into the webinar, just to tell us a bit about what the update is around IBASA activities and so on. And in fact, why it is important for people to be joining IBASA. IBASA is also, by the way, a strategic partner of FinFind. So if you are not a member of IBASA at the moment, and you are interested to know more about it, or if you would like to become a member, you can click the link that now put on the offer there for you to hear. Sorry, I'm going to go to the website, so here's not the right link there. You need to follow through to the link on the IBASA website, so that you can also benefit from membership and be part of the community of practitioners to improve the services we offer our clients. So the offer is there on the right next to the display of the webinar room. Just click on how to apply and you will get the information on IBASA membership. So Joseph, can you hear us? Joseph? You're doing something, but I'm not sure if
Yes,
oh, you can.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Would you like to give us a quick update on developments at Ibasa and how that relates to the services that we offer small business clients? Ruben, if you could just be patient, Ruben, for a moment, we'll come back to you just now. But since we have Joseph on the call now, Joseph, what's up at Ibasa and what should members note in terms of developments? Okay, it looks like we have a severe delay there on the phone, so that's not going to work either today.
But let me just say what.
So, Ruben, or Robin, sorry, you've got an interesting spelling of your name, so that
I know it is unusual.
Yes. I'm going to remove the offer there now. Plans for the future. Sort of what can we expect around FinFind and the services that business advisors specifically can make use of?
I think you can expect great things. Like any business, it's going to be growing in phases. So phase one, the key focus there was to say people need to be able to understand business finance, what it entails, and at least know who's out there. So it was very much a focus on financial literacy. We're moving into phase two. Phase two now is to say, well, obviously we're going to carry on providing the information, but a lot of people now have it. So now we want to facilitate access to funding. And there are a number of different ways that that'll happen. On the one part is going to be a whole relationship building product suite for lenders. And on the other is definitely consultants because they play a key role. So going forward, and it's possibly a little bit too early to actually give you definitions of strategies other than to say there will be a lot of changes happening that are going to make consultants' lives significantly easier, quicker, to help their clients find finance in a way that will be very, very compelling.
Great stuff. So as practitioners serving the needs of small businesses, we can look to find news from FinFind. You also find that through Ibasa, because Ibasa is a partner with FinFind in offering that. In fact, if you are an Ibasa member, you are automatically added to the database of business advisors that serve as consultants with FinFind. And it may lead to more business for one too, as a business consultant. But that's not the only way that we can empower ourselves as business advisors. This webinar format of education is one of them. And hopefully going into the future, our technology will be more stable, specifically that we don't have major interruptions in the connectivity to the servers that are unfortunately not on our shores, but it has to go under cable, undersea to the internet servers in Europe and the United States. That, of course, we don't have much control over. Also, we don't have much control over if there's a protest happening outside our office in Pretoria. Not that it is a protest against us, but if you are situated on Church Square, then that's maybe one of the consequences. Apologies both to you as attendee and to Charlton Tangalana of ABSA that the arrangements to circumvent that problem didn't work out today, so we couldn't bring Charlton to you, but I'm sure we'll be able to find another event where we can invite him to talk about the alternative funding mechanisms that the main banks are starting to launch. Mainly, these, of course, is the ABSA products. Don't assume that left column on the chart that Robin showed us is static. The banks are changing and changing their product offerings too. And I was quite looking forward to hear from Charlton what he has to say and how we can direct our clients towards that kind of products. But let's plan for a future event where we can accommodate that and talk specifically about how the banks are shifting their attention away from the traditional way of funding to new ways. I want to thank everyone that sat through the hiccups that we had today. It is not usual, and I promise you that in the future the technology will be more stable. By the way, if you still have any question, you can post it still. We still have a few minutes to the hour to discuss, even if it is about IBASA membership and what the benefits are that you're getting. I can try to address those issues for you too, since I am serving on one of the IBASA committees. But by the way, part of IBASA's system of grading of practitioners, of the business advisors, is that you need to keep on empowering yourself, educating yourself, so that you can remain on the level of grading that you've been put on through the continuous professional development hours that you need to put in. In these webinars, you'll receive an email confirmation if you spend more than 45 minutes on the webinar that you can use as proof for your CPD points. But you can also attend training programs, for instance, that offered by the EPR where I'm involved with. And to the right, there is now click through for you if you're interested in such training, short courses, practical short courses that are delivered over the internet. It's 4 2-hour sessions that you attend with some work in between on really practical ways for you to improve yourself as a business advisor so that you serve the needs of your customers better. So just click there on how can I enter, and there's a little form that you'll fill out to get the information around what these courses are and how you can benefit from that. So that being said, Ruben, it is kind of time for us to start wrap up and move towards the end. I didn't see any more questions coming through the chat, so I hope that all questions are answered. We still have a good 62 people in the room. So notwithstanding all the technical challenges that we had today, we must have delivered a good message. So thank you very much for your participation, and for you, Karen, too, for being in the background. What would your last thoughts be? What would your last pointers be for business advisors to make sure that they can get the finance that their clients are seeking?
I think it's twofold. The first is to know what is out there. And if you always have to try and get in the mind of the lender. Banks are traditional and conservative and risk averse. Government agencies are there to promote government strategies, which means if you know the IDP and you understand it, South Africa's growth path, you will know which sectors are have priority, and the fact that previously disadvantaged businesses are to be encouraged. So government agencies, if your client fits those bills, that's where you should be heading, because that's their job. So again, it's about understanding the different types of finance, why they are in place, what they hope to achieve, and seeing your clients. And then the other one is making sure your client is finance ready, that they have the right documentation.
Yeah, thank you very much. That finance readiness is a key thing, and I suppose it is our understanding of what the right finance is and how we can advise our clients to best position themselves and prepare themselves for the right institution or the right funder that they approach. So, of course, while I was saying there are no more questions, 3 or 4 of them popped up, and we do have a few more minutes. So if you don't mind, Robin, if we can address them quickly. I'll save the one about IBASA committees to last.
Yes.
But so Amanda says, what is the best approach of funding startups by commercial banks? Banks are very skeptic in funding startups versus existing businesses because they mostly base their decisions on financial statements. Okay, so what is the best approach of funding startups then if it's not through the commercial banks?
Moshe, I think really what you want to look at is what is the sector that you're operating in. Because CIFA, IDs in startup funding, but you would be needed needing to operate in one of their key industry sectors. Alternatives are to look for, let me just think of the word for this. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we're waiting for you to find the right word.
All right. A lot of corporates have started what they term seed funding. And they're held as a competition. So you'll find, for example, SABC Miller has linked in with the Bertha Institute and they provide a seed fund. But in each instance, the corporate will decide how they're going to dispense that. So in their case, it's about impact investing. So that's anything that improves the social impact.
Yes, so keep your eyes open for these kind of competitions or ways of entry so that you can, in fact, benefit from those, I would say. Would that be the right advice?
It is exactly that. I mean, you'll find Google runs competitions. There are lots of them. They're not simple funds. And it does mean, certainly at the idea stage, that you are making your idea public. There is no way to protect it, but you've got to hope that it's strong enough to win.
Yeah, so that also addresses Joseph's question about startup fundings. What is the best way for startups and Mandlas? So Rick and Marlon are talking about the developments around funding and how one can look at pre-screening as a way of increasing success, and as well as how government's policies, how those shifts are influencing projects like FinFind. So maybe as a last round, we can address those two questions.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, going forward, what FinFind will be doing is looking at pre-screening. So, I mean, that's part of the value proposition that will go for both lenders and consultants. But it is a process because, again, depending on the different types of funding, so it's not just the different types of lenders, but the different types of funding require different pre-screening processes. So, I mean, the term loan is going to be usually a lot quicker than processing a very large long-term loan. So each type of fund has different requirements.
Great. And the influence of government policy?
The influence of government policy is actually always going to be big, certainly in terms of government agencies. So if you think of NEF, IDC, CIFA, NYDA, all of whom provide funding, some of them far more seriously. I mean, NYDA just provides grants more than anything else. They have a mandate to fulfill government strategies. Every year, it's quite possible that their mandate could be amended. But what you also are seeing now is that government policy in terms of the card and the amended codes is seeing a lot of corporates now moving into lending money to small businesses. And that's coming through funds either like SAB Miller competition, or it's just a direct lending like that for Tembani. So there are a lot of options out there, and we're going to see more and more, I think, of this happening.
Great stuff. So there's a positive mood there from your side in terms of observing where things are going, not only from government side, but also from the involvement of big companies in making it possible for startups that may not be able to get the traditional forms of finance. And of course, we need to stay abreast on those. So I'm sure that IBASA's relationship with FinFind is still going to continue long into the future. And we'll find ways of bringing more information and news of this nature to our members. Robin, I'm sure we can be pushing on your buttons to help us in making sure that the flow of information there is good.
Absolutely, it'll only be a pleasure.
Great stuff. And thank you very much for both you and Karen for attending today's webinar. We've got one outstanding matter, and that is to answer Vernon's question. And Vernon is asking that we spoke about committees, IBASA committees, and how one can get involved. Now, in fact, we must remember IBASA is the Institute for Business Advisors, and it is a membership organization. It's us as members that are the driving force of this organization. It is also, by the way, recognized by SAQA as the only professional body in this country that is responsible for the checking of the quality of service delivery of business advisors. And this we do through the system that we have in grading our business advisors. We've got the 3 levels of business advisors. So, Vernon, to answer your question, the way that you get involved is by putting up your hand like you've done now. I would say the best and most productive way would be to phone the office. The telephone number is on our website, or you can email Lesego Mokwena, our manager in the office, at info@ibasa.org.za, and they'll be able to give you more information in this regard. But we do have committees on aspects like marketing and communication, like education, and of course a lot of governance issues too that needs to be addressed in terms of making sure that the organization runs smoothly, IT included, and so on. So all the skill sets of our members are what we rely on to make the organization work. So please do that, take that step, Vernon, and looking forward to see your name next to one of the committees soon. So on that note, I would like to say thank you to the 66 people that are currently in the room still. And I must say, congratulations to you to sit through the pain of the technical issues that we did experience today. Looking forward to connecting with you again in May. In May, we will most likely, it's not confirmed yet, most likely have a webinar covering procurement from government, providing services and products to government. We haven't had our speakers confirmed yet, so we can't promote that yet to you, but those communications will go out, and we will be sending out emails and posting to our Facebook page the details of signing up for that. So looking forward to connecting again with you in May. Have a nice Easter. Drive safely if you are driving. In fact, drive very safely if you're driving, and make sure we all get safe to our destinations. So goodbye, everyone, and enjoy your weekend.